So as we all know, the Montreal Canadiens have finished up their 2023-2024 NHL season. They did this with two back-to-back blown lead losses in extra time to the Detroit Red Wings, 5-4 on Monday and 5-4 on Tuesday. But even though the Canadiens finished in the bottom 5 of the NHL standings, even though they have themselves a pretty good shot at getting the first overall pick, and even though you could very well say that the team's performance as a whole was bad, the Montreal Canadiens still had what I'm going to call a pretty good season. And a lot of that comes with who we saw in the team, what kind of performances we saw out of these players, what kind of hope we're seeing into the future. No longer is it just Suzuki, Caulfield, and, I don't know, Jordan Harris that is providing hope for this team into the long term, but add on a lot of these other younger guys. Alex Newhook, Juraj Slafkovsky, Lane Hutson, and even some of the other guys who had made their debuts earlier this year. The Montreal Canadiens' long-term future is looking pretty good. But in this video, what I wanted to do was go over a few comments and posts made, a few quotes said by these Canadiens personnel heading into the 23-24 offseason. Big shout out over to the Montreal Canadiens Habs subreddit, because a lot of this is all just taken from there. All the great juicy quotes are posted everywhere, so it's kind of a good hub to find a lot of this information. But to kick off this video, what I wanted to do was talk about Martin St. Louis. In regards to entering his final season of his contract to coach the Canadiens, he said this: "It's a passion and not a job. I want to be here until they don't want me here anymore." And already, we're seeing a lot of Habs fans saying in the comments, saying in the replies, hey, renew this guy, bring him back, he's the heart and soul of this team, he's allowed a lot of these guys to grow in such a spectacular way. Martin St. Louis is that guy, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know if by the time this video is going to be public on YouTube, there's going to be an extension handed out to him or to anybody else, or anybody's going to sign or whatever, but as of right now, Martin St. Louis was that guy. Thank you for this season, Martin. Even though the Canadiens technically did place in a pretty poor position in the NHL standings, growth is very evident, and we can see that a lot of these guys improved. Speaking of which, this is what Lane Hutson had to say in regards to meeting Martin St. Louis. He was asked if he knew Martin St. Louis before joining the team. He said no, but now I'm really glad that I do. And there's a lot in that comment, honestly. There's a lot of respect there, and you can't help but appreciate that from the young Canadiens to the old, especially when you consider the fact that Martin St. Louis also was a small player in the NHL. Lane Hutson is no longer as small as he was before. I mean, he was 5'9" when he was draft eligible, but still, being able to adapt and help out small players, this is what St. Louis has been good at doing. Caulfield grew tremendously under St. Louis. Not literally, I think he's still 5'7", but in terms of the way that he plays the game. Speaking of that Lane Hutson, though, we did have some extra things here that were talked about. This was posted by GoHabsGo31 on the subreddit. The reporter asks Lane, "First game at the Bell Center, your parents are here. What does this moment mean to you?" It's pretty special. The Bell Center is a special place, and this is the greatest franchise in the NHL, so no complaints. They also interviewed his college team's goalie on the radio today, and he said there were 16 Boston University players at the game, which is kind of nuts because we actually did have some word earlier on in the week saying, yeah, Lane Hutson's going to have a lot of folks from BU head over to Montreal and watch this game live. So the fact that he was able to get himself a beautiful assist on a Juraj Slafkovsky goal seals the deal. That's the icing on the cake. And in regards to that Juraj Slafkovsky goal, hey, guess what? Slafkovsky asked if he would tip Lane Hutson anything after Lane sent him up for his 20th goal that earned Slafkovsky an extra $250,000. Yeah, by the way, we didn't talk about that. Slafkovsky hitting 20 gave him a huge signing bonus. Well, I mean, Lane Hutson will probably get all of his bonuses next year, so it'll be fine. We'll figure something out. What a bud Lane Hutson is, eh? Going out there and helping his friend get $250,000 by scoring a goal off of a really nice tip. Yeah, that's pretty great. I wish I could get $250,000 for scoring 20 goals. My ball hockey league would be a feeding ground for wealth. But either way, we had ourselves some extra things talked about with Juraj Slafkovsky as well, like this post made by 42 Answers on the Habs sub. After starting the year with only 8 points in 30 games, Juraj Slafkovsky has finished his sophomore season with 20 goals and 30 assists for 50 points. Considering his brutal start to the year, it's incredibly impressive what Slafkovsky was able to do for nearly 2/3 of the season, exceeding expectations of many, including myself, who had him getting 35, maybe 40 points. He's only the second player to hit 50 points before the age of 21, joining Guy Lafleur. Along with Lane Hutson, we may look back on the 2022 draft as one of the best in recent team history. The future is bright. And that is amazing. 8 points in 30 games, and he finishes off the year with 20 goals and 30 assists for 50 points in 82 games played. Talk about a progression, talk about a guy who knows what he is capable of, and talk about a guy who is also going to take his skills to the World Championships. Take a look at this. Eric Engels said that Slafkovsky is going to be playing at the Worlds. And to that note, we did have a few extra things in regards to the World Championships too, like this tweet made by Arpon Basu from yesterday. Kaiden Guhle, so we're shifting gears a little bit here, he confirmed that he suffered a head injury on the hit from Nikita Kucherov. If he's healthy in time, he said he's been asked to play for Canada at the World Championships, and he will go. Now, let's try to keep it a little bit civil. We don't need to make this a video about Nikita Kucherov. That guy has enough on his plate in regards to being one of the best playmakers in the NHL, while also being a very dirty player at times, my goodness. But for Kaiden Guhle, there is an opportunity we could see him play off against Slafkovsky at the World Championships if his head trauma is able to recover properly. Of course, you hate seeing a guy be put in a position like this in the first place, but hey, Nikita Kucherov's gonna Nikita Kucherov, right? Speaking about that, we did have a few extra things that I wanted to talk about as well. Talk about terrorists on the ice. That's a terrible word to use, my bad. We had ourselves another post made by GoHabsGo31 on the subreddit. A reporter went out there and asked Arber Xhekaj, how long before the two Xhekaj brothers terrorized the opponents? Arber said this, I can't wait, man. My whole family, we're over the moon for that day to come. If it does happen, when it does happen, and I think it's a matter of when, it'll be fun to watch. Don't you just love the attitude there? Don't you just love the half-glass-full mentality? No, it's not a matter of if we're going to play on the same team, it's a matter of when. Arber and Florian both suited up for the Laval Rocket at different times this season, so by the time Florian becomes good enough to be an NHL player, and he's playing with his brother at the top league in the world, just imagine the Bash Brother duo fights that these guys could get into. Not that, cheering for a guy to become an NHL player just so he can fight is a preferable thing, but you acknowledge that these are play styles and traits that they have, so it is very, very great. To end off this video, though, let's go over some Nick Suzuki material, because he went out there and talked about his line after the game. Those two guys worked their butts off. They're down to listen, down to learn. They've got so much better throughout the year, and they helped me become a better player too. All three of us love playing together, it's been fun, and we're really excited to come back. Of course, Suzuki is talking about Slafkovsky and Caulfield. We're going to say it one more time. I don't think this is going to catch on because it didn't throughout the entire year, but it was a thing back before the season began. The Slafkovsky line with Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caulfield. A really interesting, what is the word, an anagram of all the three names combined? Either way, though, Suzuki had 77 points in 82 games played this season. Cole Caulfield, 65 in 82 games. Slafkovsky had 50 points in 82 games played. So, love to see that these three guys have taken control of Montreal Canadiens scoring. Suzuki also said this, addressing the fans at the Bell Center, I think you can all see that we have a special group here, and all the seasons in the future will be a lot better. I think we have an exciting team. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. See you next year. Now, that, of course, was a very pleasant exchange, especially considering the fact that the Canadiens, as we said, they finished as one of the worst teams in the NHL, but it doesn't feel like it. This isn't a season where I think you're feeling all down and doom and gloom because the team sucked and whatever. Nah, there's a lot of good that came out of the Montreal Canadiens this season, and Nick Suzuki pretty much gives fans reason to hope for the future. We also had this post made by CheetahLinks83 going over how for the first time since the 2021 season, a Canadiens player other than Suzuki has played every game. And you might have seen it already in the screenshot of the points, but Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Matheson, and Jake Evans played every game this season. The last Hab to join Suzuki in playing every game before this year was Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Shout out to Gallagher, who didn't get injured, and the only games he missed were during his suspension as well. So not only are the Canadiens getting better, but they're also getting healthier, which I think is also an underrated part to talk about. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canadiens and some reflections after the season. What are your thoughts about what Suzuki said, what Slafkovsky said, Hutson, Martin, St. Louis, and everybody else in between? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.